These are the details that prove the authenticity of that particular hadith, which the academicians purporting to look at it objectively lose sight of. And she says, well, if you think what I'm talking is rubbish, if you think this is not true, wait, and it will not be long. Soon this man will come and you will see the authenticity of what I'm saying. And when you hear this, that is the time you should take out this letter. And the Imam alayhi salam gave that letter. Bashir looks at that letter. It's all written in the Roman language that Bashir did not know at all. We have already had occasion to discuss that we do not accept him as an Imam who does not know all languages and is able to communicate with everybody in his own language. And a person who says, I do not know such and such a language, or I need an interpreter, or I need a translator, is not an Imam from Allah, exalted and glorified. Because the purpose of Allah sending an Imam is for him to guide people. And he cannot guide people unless he can communicate with them. And we also saw how the personality calling himself an Imam comes to Mumbai. And when he comes to Mumbai, the press meet him at the airport and say, do you speak Hindi? He says, no, I don't speak Hindi. And they say, well, how will you communicate with your people? And he says, I have brought translators. Now the moment that is said, we instantly eliminate him from the proper qualifications of. And that said, I set out the way an Imam alayhi salam behaves. I will not take your time because we obviously are running short of time, but only to remind you in less than a minute. I cited all this in the context of Imam Rada salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi. How he in a morning was having a session and his companions were sitting, and the first person to come in was a Farsi. This was in Tus, in the place allocated to him by Ma'mun, and he spoke to the person in Farsi. The next person is in Arab. He speaks to him in Arabic. But the next person was the person who spoke Turk. He spoke to him in Turkey, and then comes, and I'm jumping quite a bit. I gave you more details when I set out the hadith in detail. Then comes the Indian and speaks to him in Urdu. And the Imam alayhi salam turns to Abu Basir and says, Abu Basir, you hear this? And Abu Basir says, I don't even know what language he is speaking on. Not only that I don't understand him, I don't even know what language this is. And the Imam alayhi salam says, he's speaking in Urdu. Do you want to learn Urdu? I can make you speak Urdu. And how we discussed Imam Rada alayhi salam got Abu Basir to be a fluent Urdu speaker. The Imam alayhi salam spoke to him in Urdu. He got his answers in Urdu and went away. And it absolutely staggered Abu Basir. He could not conceive. He turns to him and says, so how many languages do you speak, Yabna Rasulillah? And the reply of Imam Rada alayhi salam is, I speak as many languages as Allah has created men to be speaking those tongues. As many tongues Allah in His glory has created in this world, with His creatures, He has given me the knowledge of each of those tongues. And likewise, I say, even if I should say this again during the weekend, but likewise I say to the youths, your aridhas don't have to be in Arabic. They don't have to be in Farsi. They can be in Hindi, they can be in Urdu, they can be in English. Because the Imam alayhi salam understands all those languages. He cannot be an Imam confined to a person. Imam Hadi alayhi salam in this context writes that complete letter in Roman language. And Bashir says, I took that letter and when I went to the Euphrates, to the Tigris rather, and at that riverfront saw those boats, looked for the boat of Umar bin Yazid, got to that particular boat. I was able to identify that lady straight away by the description the Imam alayhi salam gave me. Paused to have all this drama take place. And when it did, I produced the letter. She received the letter, and the moment she received the letter, this is the second sign I wish to bring to your attention, she does not open that letter to read it. As though she knew what that letter would contain, as though she was told in advance what that letter would contain. And she just kisses the letter, turns to Umar and says, didn't I tell you? Didn't I tell you I would receive that letter? So Umar says, let me see the letter. And she says, you won't be able to read it. It's in my language, not yours. She opens the letter. Umar bin Yazid says, it's the language I don't understand. So Umar bin Yazid until now he had asked for 100 gold coins for this particular lady. And there were purchasers who were prepared to purchase her for 100 gold coins. He says to Bashir bin Sulaiman, I want from you 120 gold coins if you want this particular. And Bashir bin Sulaiman says, I don't know how much money I have. My master has given me a purse, and in the purse contains the money. Here is the purse, count the money. And when Umar bin Yazid counts the money, there were indeed 120 gold coins in it. He accepts the 120 gold coins, and the lady moves. So he first of all, Bashir bin Sulaiman says, I took this lady, reverential as she was, to the place where I had my belongings in Baghdad, so that we collect our belongings and move off. And as I was in that place collecting my belongings, I saw this lady kissing the letter, reading the letter and weeping. So I turned to her and I said, why do you weep? I thought I would have problems communicating with her in Arabic. Third sign that I wish to put forward to you. But there she was talking to me in Arabic, because I did not know the Roman language at all. And she says, this is a letter that my master has sent to me. It's a letter that I treasure most deeply, because it is the first written communication I have received from him. So Bashir says, I was absolutely flabbergasted. I said, what master are you talking about? How do you know all this? And how did you come to expect me to be there? Because you told Umar bin Yazid that I would come with a letter and I would produce this letter. How does all this come about? She says, well, if you want to know, I will tell you. But then you will need to sit and listen to this, because it will take a few minutes. Bashir says, nothing is more important to me than listening to these ahadith, to these episodes that flow with regard to my master, whom you call your master. So we have that in common already. And she says, I am no ordinary person. I am the granddaughter of the emperor of Rome, of the Kaiser, as he used to be called in those days, of the Kaiser of Rome. And I am actually the daughter of Prince Yusha. Yusha is my father. And my grandfather, the Kaiser, once decided that I should be married to his nephew. So he organized the wedding ceremony. And all the priests, obviously, were invited. All the ministers were invited. All his courtiers were invited to the court. And a huge wedding ceremony was arranged, at which about 4,000 people were invited. And then he had a special throne for that occasion. A throne which, it is said, had 40 wheels on it to be wheeled into the church. And it was studded with diamonds. And he had his nephew sitting on it to be wedded to me. So she continues that the moment the priest started reciting the words of the marriage ceremony, suddenly they saw that all the idols in the church collapsed. They all fell on the ground. All the photographs that were there, all of them fell down. People sitting there began to feel giddy, and suddenly the very throne on which this would-be groom was sitting, that throne also fell, and the groom fell to the floor. But whilst the groom was not much injured, the throne was torn into pieces altogether. All the diamonds and other precious stones scattered all over. The Kaiser felt immensely insulted by this. Turns to the priest and says, what is this? Why should this happen? What are the circumstances in which a thing like this happens? And the priest says, oh Kaiser, I know nothing about this. I have not even read about this in the books. I cannot explain this at all. I am myself astonished. In fact, I don't even know how to put all this right. So my grandfather says, I know how to put it right. Get all these idols back into their places. Get new idols where the idols have been broken into pieces. I'm getting another throne in. And another throne was brought in, exactly identical to the previous one. Again, with 40 wheels wheeled in, studded with diamonds and precious jewels. And now the Kaiser says to the priest, start again. This time, more carefully. And so the priest starts. And the moment he comes to the crucial words, exactly the same thing happens again. This time, by the way, the groom was not the same nephew. It was his younger brother. The king thought that maybe the first one was not a suitable match. So the younger brother, who was more eligible than the elder brother, was put on the throne to be married to this lady. And exactly the same event took place again. All the idols fell. The throne fell, again broken into pieces. This time, the people feeling giddy, they were not prepared to sit anymore. The courtiers, the ministers just walked out of the palace, and the king felt highly humiliated. The emperor was highly humiliated, but there was nothing he could do about it. And she says, for months my grandfather did not even come out of the palace because he did not have a face to show to his people. So she says that is how that episode ended during the day. And she says, I was absolutely baffled myself. I did not know what was happening. I could not sleep. But it so happened that in the small hours I suddenly felt the drowsiness, and I went off to sleep. And what do I see? I see exactly that place in my dream. And I then thought, this is psychological. I'm thinking of what happened during the day, and suddenly I saw a luminous personality coming with a long beard, sitting on the throne. And soon another personality comes in. And when he comes in, this personality on the throne stands up and gives him place on the throne. So he too sits on the throne. And as he sits on the throne, another personality comes in. And as he comes in, I became curious. I said, who are these people? I don't know them at all. And there was somebody next to me. So I turned around to him and say, who are these people? And he says, don't you know? And I said, no. It's amazing that you should know. So she says, well, tell me then if I should know. And he says, that is Jesus. This is Nabi Isa alayhi salam. And so I asked, who is this person whom he has put on the throne with him? And he says, this is Muhammad al-Mustafa sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And then she says, I was happy just to be told those. And he says, this third gentleman who has just entered and has taken his place, that is the cousin of the Holy Prophet. That is Ali ibn Abi Talib salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi. Another sign for you to ponder over. And then she says all the 11 came in. When all the 11 came in, I did not recognize. All I saw was luminous faces, and all of them had their appropriate seats, and all took their seats. And when all were seated, Nabi Isa alayhi salam turns round to the Holy Prophet and says, I am here to fulfill any wish, any command you wish to make. And the Holy Prophet turns to him and says, O Isa ibn Maryam, I wish the hand of your daughter, the daughter of the granddaughter of Shamun al-Safa, for my son Al-Askari, salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi. And Nabi Isa alayhi salam turns to Shamun. Shamun, as you know, was the successor to Nabi Isa alayhi salam. He was a wasi, as Imam Ali alayhi salam was the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him and his progeny. Shamun al-Safa was a wasi and an heir and successor and khalifa of Nabi Isa alayhi salam. Turns to him and says, what do you say about this? Because the decision is not mine, it's yours. And he says, what greater honor can there be to me than to have my daughter married to the son of the Holy Prophet of Islam, of the current Prophet and the Prophet of the Asr and Zaman. And so Nabi Isa turns to him and says, if that is it, we ready, and we will have our daughter married to Al-Askari. I was asked to stand up, and Al-Askari alayhi salam was asked to stand up. That is the first time I had a glimpse of my master. And when I saw this, my eyes opened and the dream was over. She says, I couldn't explain this at all. This mixture of Christianity with Islam, religions that were in conflict. We were set out, she says, we were set out from Rome. The reason I was able to leave Rome and get to the river in Baghdad was that Christianity was at war with Islam at the time. And my grandfather had decided he will march on to the Muslims. And so he sent out this army. And I was told by my master to join that army. Well, we all knew the two religions were in conflict. How are these two sitting together? And then, through their meeting, now a marriage is to take place. Centuries later, we can understand this too well. The will of Allah, glorified and exalted, that these two of His last prophets should have from their progenitors a union that should ultimately combine these two last religions in a way in which these two religions will flourish together in the right path. Then any shirk, any polytheism in any of these religions would be eliminated. Indeed, we will see that it is Nabi Isa alayhi salam himself who will demolish all the crosses when the time will come with his own hands, particularly those in Palestine. And he will pray behind the 12th Imam alayhi salam, as you might already have heard. And we shall touch on all these matters again. But these matters that are to come, foundation for it is laid in the manner in which it is laid. It is not a question of just putting forward a fanciful story connecting the 12th Imam alayhi salam with a Roman emperor. Oh no, there is a more subtle and more fundamental basis to it all, as she sets it out. And that very night she says, when I see that dream, I begin to wonder what is happening. But there was no contact anymore, and I was getting weaker and weaker. I was longing to meet my master, and I could not meet him. I was baffled. I did not know how to live. I did not know what next step to take, how to chart out my path along the journey of life. And suddenly one night, I see in my dream the beloved daughter of the Holy Prophet, Bibi Fatima Zahra salamullahi alayha. And when she was introduced to me as the beloved daughter of the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him and his progeny, I immediately complained to her that I saw that dream, and now I feel totally abandoned. And the lady turns to her and says, yes, but my son will not come to meet you. The state in which you are, we do not find it fit to meet you at all. So she says, what do I have to do? She says, and Bibi alayhi salam says, you've got to convert to Islam. So she says, how do I do that? And it is Bibi Fatima alayhi salam, another sign that I want to put across to you this evening. She does not become a Muslimah in the ordinary way. She is not brought to Islam by an ordinary person. That Tahira, that Sayyidati Nisa'il Alameen, that Siddiqa, that Sayyida is sent by Allah, glorified and exalted, in her dream. She teaches her to say La ilaha illallah and teaches her what that means. And she repeats those words, La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah, and then repeats the kalima regarding the wasiyah of Imam Ali alayhi salam and the Imams alayhi salam. And when that is done, Bibi Fatima alayhi salam says, now I will ask my son to meet you on a very regular basis. And she says, from that night onwards, Al-Askari alayhi salam would come in my dreams. And this letter that you are surprised about it is he who told me, and he it is who told me that your grandfather will stand an army. Join the army. Join the army.